Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily, presented by Amazon Prime for January 15th, 2026. I'm Dave DuFour here with Zena Keita. Coming up, the Cavs win big. The Kings win their third straight. Got to break them up. And we talked to Tony Jones about the Sixers side of that Cavs game and Embiid's future. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zena. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Another lovely night of hoops.
You know, okay, some of the games were good. Some of them were bad. I want to tip the cap to my guy, Bryce Sensabaugh. 43 points off the bench. Absurd shooting performance for the Utah Jazz in what was a perfect tank loss to the Chicago Bulls, right? I mean, it was just, they were competitive. They were all in there. Their young guy, Keontae George, misses a big shot at the end. Bryce Sensabaugh was ridiculous, and also only 2 assists. That's a real Hooper stat line right there. 43 points, 2 assists. I love that. Speaking of Hoopers, the Cavs absolutely were hooping all over the Sixers last night. Wow. And we're going to talk the Sixers side of the loss after the break with Tony Jones and some of the bigger picture stuff with the Sixers. But we got to hit the Cavs because we've been hammering the Cavs for looking soft and for being low energy themselves like the Sixers were last night. And frankly, they came out and they looked so good. They really, I thought, put on a clinic with the way that they not only defended, but the way that they were getting into the paint and scoring against the Sixers. This is more of what we expected this season from them. And I need to note that Darius Garland had a really nice game, 20 points, 7 assists. They were plus 10 in his 23 minutes. He left the game with a foot injury. So as we're praising the Cavs, they're finally starting to get their pieces together. Down goes Darius Garland again, and that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah,
the Cleveland Cavaliers came out and made this a track meet immediately, and Philadelphia was just not ready at the line. They didn't hear the gun go off. They were groggy and slow to start. And you saw a little bit of not only Cleveland's offense running so well, it was truly Philly's defense just didn't match. So I don't know how much it was a factor of whether the offense was so much spectacular from the Cavs versus just the physicality not being met by the Sixers. But we're going to have to break that down with Tony Jones.
Yeah, they also went 20 of 46, the Cavs, 20 of 46 from 3. You're not going to lose a ton of games shooting like that.
That's a theme we're going to get into for tonight because the games that were on, threes were a major factor.
Yeah, they kind of got hot. Speaking of threes, the Kings have now won 3 straight, and they're not beating bums, Zena. They beat the Rockets, they beat the Lakers, and last night they beat the Knicks. Now, a lot of people are going to point, and they're going to say Jalen Brunson left this game with an ankle injury. We'll get an update on that, I'm assuming, sometime today. He only played 5 minutes, Zena. But to me, I say, well, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, that's not enough to beat the Kings?
Right. That's a tough question. And we're starting to put a spotlight on Cat because this is now the second kind of like empty calorie game, right? Have you ever heard those where it's just you burned a lot of minutes, you play 22 minutes and you get 13 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. That's a workout. It's not a basketball game, right? And we know what he's capable of, Karl Anthony Towns, when Jalen Brunson is out, but we didn't see him step up. We didn't see him take on that gravity. And you saw the complete opposite on the other side of the ball from his former teammate. Precious Achiuwa was like, you didn't want me, bro. Y'all didn't want me. The Knicks didn't want me. Don't worry. I'll put up the 20 points that you expect, which is what Cat typically averages, 21 points. But I mentioned 2 games now we've seen. He did this against Detroit. He had 6 points against Detroit. And we're like, what's happening here? And then he's now done this against Sacramento. You can make sense of it in Detroit, but against Sacramento, you are supposed to be that guy outside on the floor.
Yeah. The Precious Achiuwa revenge game. He had 20 points, 14 rebounds, 6 offensive rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. That's a really great game. I mean, everyone on the Kings kind of went off. Russell Westbrook had 19 points, 11 assists. DeMar DeRozan had 27 points. Zach LaVine had 25 points. I'm sure that this is like Vivek must be watching this and saying, see, this was the vision. We had it all along. These guys can do it. I mean, it was a fun game. The Kings, it's nice when they get to light the beam.
So now Houston, Lakers, Knicks.
That's right. And
then Wizards are coming to town. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Hey, listen, about to be 4 straight. You just play the ones that are in front of you. This is the first time, by the way, that the Kings have won 3 in a row since last April. So been a minute since they tied them together. Hey, speaking of teams we got to break up, the Nuggets without Jokić, they're 6-3. They're beat the Mavs last night, 118-109. Jamal Murray. Again, I think that case for the All-Star game, just go ahead and book it. Book that flight, Jamal. 33 points in the game last night. Peyton Watson, who has become a favorite here on this show, had another 18 points, adding to his resume. The Nuggets, this depth, we're going to continue to hammer this because when Jokić comes back, and it does look like that's getting sooner. There were reports yesterday that he's doing on-court work. I have this feeling like he might be back before the 1st of February, which would be amazing for them. I mean, considering that they've performed so well without him. I don't know, Zena, the Nuggets are feeling like the best team in the league. I just can't get over how well that they've played without Nikola Jokić. It just doesn't really make any sense. I know it's the Mavericks, but still, I mean, they look good.
They look very good. And I'll give you that they definitely look great in a way that we didn't expect without Nikola Jokić. We remember what those plus minuses were like last year. And so for them to have found these found gems on their bench is amazing. We're seeing Spencer Jones come in, get fouled a lot. Like he finds a way to get fouled. He gets to the free throw line a lot. Of course, we've talked about Peyton Watson. I don't know if it's ad nauseum, but we're talking about Peyton Watson. He has put himself on the spotlight there. But just in general, this team is defending really well. But it goes back to what we just talked about with Karl-Anthony Towns. He has not stepped up in those moments when Jalen Brunson is not available. Particularly we saw against the Sacramento Kings. Jamal Murray has stepped up in every game since Nikola Jokić has been gone. And that has been the key all season long, really, for the Denver Nuggets. Whether Nikola was on the floor or not, Jamal Murray was playing like all-star Jamal Murray that we know him to be, whether it was being an organizer, getting to the rack, getting to his spots, using his strength. I mean, getting folks off of him. It was really fun watching him, put on a masterclass last night. But yeah, shout out to Jamal Murray taking on the leadership position that we know him capable to be from a vocal perspective, but obviously from a performance perspective too.
Yeah, they're cooking right now. All right, everybody, stick around after the break. We go deep with Tony Jones. We talk big time about the game and just the short-term future of this Sixers team. I think they might be competitive come playoff time. Another night, another NBA Daily curse victim. This time, it's our Sixers who we've been hyping up, Zena. And we had to put the curse on them by booking Tony Jones for the show. 133-107. The Cavs just manhandled the Sixers. I mean, it started in the first quarter, Tony. It felt like a blowout after the end of one, and it wound up being even worse.
Yeah, they got cooked tonight. I mean, here's the thing. When you look at the NBA, there are certain barometer games where you know that a team is going to probably have, heavy legs. Okay, so night after a back-to-back, third game in 4 nights. This is Sixers' third game in 4 nights. If you, the kind of the unspoken saying is, if you're coming back from a long road trip, the first home game, it's always difficult. So this is the first home game on the heels of a road trip that went all the way down to Orlando, then all the way back up to Canada for 2, and then back down to Philly. But even under those guys, even under that context, even if we give them grace for that, it doesn't excuse exactly what happened tonight, which is they came out, they had no legs from the start. They had no energy from the start. And that's been very atypical of this Sixers team this year. This team has kind of been defined by the fact that they've found a way to play hard 90% of the time, 90% of the nights, which is kind of atypical of the rest of the NBA. And, that's why one of the reasons why they've been able to survive with no Joel Embiid. But tonight, it was a stinker. They didn't show up. They didn't have any legs. They didn't have any energy. They tried to muster a couple of rallies, a couple of responses. But once, Cleveland kind of shut both of those surges down, they kind of let the rope go a little bit. So, they have to figure it out and get on the Friday night. But I think, down to a man, I think everybody knows what happened tonight.
I mean, we talk a little bit about who contributed to this, and Joel Embiid looked really groggy in comparison to what we've seen him be in the last few games. 4 turnovers in the first 8 minutes. Looked like the Twin Towers on the Cleveland side. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen really made it hard for him to score. Even though he did end up with some respectable numbers, it just felt like he was a little bit frustrated in terms of his ability to get to the basket easier and have to fight through bodies. Overall, is this what the Sixers will look like against a tough defense? They did not have the physicality that you would expect them to have. Do you have any concerns about, did this show or reveal anything about their physicality against a tough defense?
Well, I think, I think this is a multi-layered question. I think one of the answers is we'll know a little bit more, probably a lot more on Friday night. Philly's 0-2 against the Cavaliers this year. The first loss, that was the second night of a back-to-back. You're definitely not going to win that. They had gone to overnight they have gone to overtime, I believe, the night before. Oh, that was actually, they lost at the buzzer to the Chicago Bulls. So, their legs had been drained the night before. So that was kind of a throwaway game. Tonight, you explain all of that. Friday night, both teams are going to be on the same rest advantage. And, the Cleveland's going to have a night off in the same city. Philly's going to have a night off in the same city. They're probably going to have the same, amount of legs. I think that's going to be more indicative of what a playoff matchup between these teams will look like. So there's that. As for Embiid, he couldn't get to his spots tonight. And I think that was pretty evident early. Jared Allen did a really good job of getting him a step away from where he wanted to be. I think that, Cleveland did a really good job with their pick and roll coverages and crowding that 2-man game between Embiid and Maxey. And they just didn't let those guys dictate what the offense was going to be. And I thought that was really apparent early, and I thought that was a really important moniker into why this game turned into what it turned into. So, I think the Sixers have to figure out the spacing around that 2-man game, get that thing spaced. I think that Cleveland, came in and said, okay, we're going to, Dominic Barlow's in the corner. We're going to let him take all of the corner threes that he wants to. We're going to crowd Paul George, and we're going to, we know that VJ Edgecombe has shot the ball well, but we're going to trust what we think his jumper was, before the season, not what the numbers are now, not the 38% now. So, this was one of the first teams that I think that, since Tyrese and Joel kind of got going, have made both of those guys just see bodies. They've been playing with so much space. They've been playing so freely. Cleveland made them see bodies. I think they did a really good job on Tyrese Maxey. I thought Jalen Tyson did a really good job in his point of attack defense. I think that he did a really good job of not conceding switches. So, Tyrese couldn't take advantage of, okay, now I have Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland. There wasn't a lot of those matchups. And Evan Mobley looked like Tim Duncan out there.
He looked good.
Evan Mobley,
who hasn't really looked good this year. I mean, I would say that part of that is that Embiid did look, like you said, he looked a step slow, like a guy. I mean, he's played 9 of their last 12, something like that. And maybe, this travel, like you said, the trip could have contributed to that a little bit. But he has looked better than I think any of us expected of him at this point of the season. I mean, this team has been better. And I think that Embiid being able to come in and find his way around these young guys is part of, the secret to their success. You mentioned they're playing like 90% at this high effort. And that's because I think Adem Bona and Andre Drummond have been able to provide that when Embiid isn't out there to be the offensive guy. I mean, they've been able to apply that defensively and on the boards. But the truth is, it's been a full team effort, led by Tyrese Maxey. I mean, this is a little bit of a 2 timeline situation that they've stumbled into due to Joel Embiid's injuries and Paul George, obviously the same thing. But they clearly have a path forward behind these young guys. And I think that we've seen that movement already be accepted within the organization. And Joel Embiid seems like he's bought in.
Yeah, I think that he's bought in, and I think that it helps him buy in from the fact that he's getting on the floor and he's feeling like himself and he's looking like himself. So, I think that, there's a train of thought that's like, okay, we don't know when the bottom falls out. The bottom can fall out. But right now, I'm myself. Right now, I can play in the All-Star game. I'm still good enough to play in the All-Star game. So, you see a lot of guys mentally check out when they aren't themselves. Mm-hmm. And when, the realization is, oh my God, I'm like actually washed. Like, there's nothing left in the tank. And Joel's clearly not there. So, it helps him, that helps him buy into, I can let Tyrese Maxey cook and I can let VJ cook. And, and Paul knows pretty definitively that he's a third option. And he's really comfortable with operating as a third option in the offense. So I think all of those things have worked so far. I think the offense has been clunky, to start the journey. It's gotten a little better of late. It was terrible tonight, but, maybe that's a one-off. I thought that it was really telling that VJ Edgecombe, for one of the first times this year, kind of really didn't have it, because he's kind of always bought it, especially energy-wise and defensively-wise. And I thought that it was demoralizing that Donovan Mitchell came out in the third quarter and just cooked everybody.
Yeah. I mean, look, the game started
Sam
out.
Merrill didn't help either. His threes.
The low energy for the Sixers got him off to a bad start. I mean, I think the shot advantage for the Cavs at the end of the first quarter was like 14 shots or something like that. About 13 minutes into the game when the last time I checked that.
They rebounded 5 of their first 6 missed shots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when Donovan Mitchell comes out hot after halftime, it's over. You've already started out in the hole, and you can't come back when Donovan gets hot, which Tony has probably seen more than anybody at this point, in the NBA. Yeah, sorry, Zena, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do. I just want to reiterate the point that this was an aberration of a game. I thought the way that the Sixers came out, I was shocked.
It's kind of hard to use this game as Tony. I like the way you mentioned it, like the barometer to be able to measure where Philly has been. We've been so complimentary of the growth that Philly has had over the course of the season, particularly offensively. I was shocked at the lack of adjustments on defense. Like Mobley was throwing over the Sixers defense over and over, getting that pick and the high-low action with Jared Allen. And I was shocked that they were not adjusting. Nick Nurse was not, it was strange. And then they were over collapsing. You're seeing the kick and drive. That was really what happened in the first quarter. Just drive and kick over and over. And people were over committing to drivers and letting folks hit shots. When the score went, I think the deficit was like 15. And Sam Merrill comes in and does what Sam Merrill does and hits shots, ballooned it to 25. I'm like, at some point, we might have to just do a hedge. You might have to stick with some shooters. But it was interesting to see that even that, the Nick Nurse deciding to, I don't know if that was his decision or what the players were saying to him, like, this is what we're seeing out there. But that also felt like an aberration from their defense, not being able to adjust to the actions that you saw, particularly with the bigs.
There were a couple of things, and Z, you make these are some really good points, because I asked Nick Nurse before the game, I said, tell me about Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell and how difficult for a coach like you, because Nick Nurse constantly stresses POA, point of attack defense. And, how difficult is it for those guys? And, Nick told me, say, hey, Donovan's like a running back out there. Darius is such a great pick and roll player. It's hard to keep those guys out of the paint, but that's definitely That's definitely a priority for us. And then they proceeded to give up every single paint touch in the world off the dribble today. And it was an easy game for the Cavaliers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Paint touch, drive, just like Z said, drive, draw, kick. Tyson in the corner, 3. Sam in the corner, 3. Or Donovan's pulling up for 3. Or Darius Garland's pulling up for 3. Philly came out in the drop, and Darius Garland killed that in the first quarter. And then Donovan Mitchell killed the drop in the third quarter. They tried to adjust. They said, okay, let's adjust. We're going to go zone. Donovan promptly shoots over the zone. It was one of those games. And, Evan hit, 3 or 4 jumpers in the first quarter that really hurt them as well. Because now if you even have to go out and you have to guard Evan Mobley to 3, then that's even more spacing for the guards to do damage. So, it was kind of a perfect storm. Obviously, the effort, you talk about the effort, you talk about the legs, you could talk about all of that stuff if you want. But the scheme was a perfect storm that was, killing the Sixers as well. So,
yeah,
I think the answer, if I'm an NBA head coach, and I'm not an NBA head coach, I am an NBA journalist, not a head coach. I'm a journalist, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night.
That's not true. You're a Marriott guy.
I am a Marriott guy.
See,
but
those points.
If I am a coach, I'm going to do this. I'm going to switch. I'm going to play Kelly Oubre because I don't think Dominic Barlow is going to play on Friday.
Yeah. He hurt his back, right?
Yes.
Back condition.
He hurt his back. Yeah. I'm going to play Kelly Oubre a lot of minutes if he's not on a minutes restriction because he did come back. And I'm going to switch a lot of the action up top.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put Joel Embiid on somebody other than Jared Allen because if I put him on Jared Allen's just going to be the screener, and that's just going to put Joel Embiid into the action. And that's where the Sixers got themselves in a lot of trouble defensively tonight. So I'll see how that works, and I'll try to switch a lot of stuff up top and make them, see like defenders. So if I'm switching from Paul George to VJ Edgecombe, switching from VJ Edgecombe to Kelly Oubre, and maybe the matchups are a little bit more in Philadelphia's favor.
I mean, it's probably an easier job for Embiid to be the low man and slide over into help anyway on those guys. But Jared Allen can make you pay in a mismatch, so you got to be careful with that.
Right.
I mean,
I like the idea, though.
You got to get him off the boards. That's
right.
That's real. I like the idea, though, of the switching, particularly because that one action, I think it's a big that has it at the top of the key, and Donovan or Darius are curling off like the wing screen, and they're if you're locking and trailing, you're going to be behind at all times.
Right.
And then Jared Allen's just rolling. It's just, I like the idea of screening. I just am interested of how we know the Cavs can adjust, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is I'm seeing you being coach right now, Tony. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Coach Tony Jones out there.
I'm loving
all right, Tony,
it.
before we get out of here, Tyrese Maxey, I just want to hit him just solo. The season that he's had, all NBA guy, right?
Yes. Second team at this point for me. Right?
Yeah.
Because, for me, I think right now I'd have Cade on my first team. I'd have Anthony Edwards on my first team. I'd have Jaylen Brown on my first team. Would you have Luka on your first team?
I just don't know, Tony.
I don't have Luka on my first team.
Yeah.
We're thinking there's no Wemby, right? Like there's no Wemby and there's no Jokić.
I think Jokić, we're not sure about. The 65-game rule is making the conversation a little less fun. Shea would be first team All NBA, I'm assuming.
Obviously.
I think right now Maxey's somewhere between second team and third team. I think it depends on how the rest of the year goes. But the season that he's had carrying the team for the opening months, I mean, the guy is, how many minutes is he averaging a game right now, Tony?
He is averaging a touch under 40 minutes a night.
Yeah, which is pretty absurd.
That's so disgusting. I'm like
my back hurts just thinking about
right. That's
that.
exactly why I said that's disgusting. That is absurd. Wow.
By the way, I didn't
him.
mention it when we were talking about Joel Embiid, but if you're listening to the pod, it's worth your time. Go over to The Athletic. Tony just did a big story on Joel Embiid and finding his joy. And, just, like, the recovery from injury for athletes is something that I do think we take for granted. And Tony, I love the story. I thought it was a good chance to see the mindset of Joel Embiid right now as he's trying to reintegrate and find his way as a guy who was an MVP and now clearly isn't, and is trying to discover what sort of player does he get to be for the rest of his career. So I thought that was really good. So everybody go and read that. We're going to get out of here. Tony, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Again, guys, go and read Tony Jones. He's one of the best in the business and one of my favorite people. People say we look like twins. I don't know
We
about
do look
that.
like twins.
If you're
Tony is
not
people,
watching on
by the way. I'm
YouTube,
just going to say, Tony is people.
Listen,
We look like twins.
our dart session in Dallas that night is still legendary.
oh wow.
And will
I missed
remain, story will remain untold.
That's all that's going to be said there.
There you go. For Tony Jones and Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for hanging out with us.